Good afternoon, everybody. I know you've all just come back from an exciting lunch and meeting new people and talking to people, and now I want you to focus on me. So I'm going to start off by making you do a bit of work, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. What's this? And I've just put a picture up in case it's too small. What's this? It's not a trick question. It's a light bulb. And what's this?
A lamp?
Correct. But it might surprise you to know that if you were in the business of selling light bulbs, this is a lamp, and that's a light fitting. So how many of you are making the same kind of mistake with your customers, trying to sell them what you're selling rather than what they're wanting to buy? So I want you to hold that thought, and I'm going to talk to you about some techniques for helping you to make a lasting impression with your AdWords campaign on your customers and on your business. So I've recently been rereading Jim Collins's book, From Good to Great. I don't know if any of you have read it. And I've come across quite a few interesting concepts which I believe can be applied to running your advertising campaigns online. And I'm going to talk about 3 of them today. The first one is the Hedgehog Concept, and the second one is a culture of discipline, and the final one is technology accelerators. So what do I mean by the Hedgehog Concept? This term comes from a story told by a Greek poet whose name I can't pronounce. And in this tale, he talks about the quick, clever fox who's quite sure that he can find some way to catch and eat the hedgehog, and the plodding, careful hedgehog who focuses just on the one thing he does really well, which is curling up into a spiky ball and making himself too difficult for the hedgehog to eat. But the premise goes on to say that the world is divided into 2 types of people. There are those, I'd probably put myself in the category, those of us who are interested in absolutely everything, the foxes, and those who drive what they do around one central targeted concept, and those are the hedgehogs. And in his book, Jim Collins says that every single one of the great companies in the book, Good to Great, did have a hedgehog concept. And in fact, if you look at some of the most influential people in our last 100, 200 years, they've been hedgehogs as well. So Charles Darwin with his one system of evolution, Freud with the unconscious, etc. So I'm not going to start off with talking about AdWords in detail at all. I'm going to start off with what are really some basic marketing principles. And actually, some of the things I'm going to talk about were mentioned by Phil Russell this morning when he did his talk. The point about a hedgehog is that it's focused and targeted, that it has one thing that it aims at. And in order to get the best out of your AdWords campaign, you need to be doing the same thing. You need to be identifying your target. So you need to be identifying exactly who you're selling to. And Phil talked about personas, and that's what I mean here. You need to identify their characteristics. You need to identify where they are. How old are they? What gender are they? What are they interested in? What problems have they got? And then you need to identify clearly what they are buying from you. So, and I say that deliberately, what they are buying from you, not what you are selling to them. So remember the light bulb and the lamp. That you are selling maybe light bulbs, but lamps. What they are buying is light bulbs, and you need to be thinking about what your customers are buying. And the third point is that you need to identify why they're buying it at all and why they're buying it from you. So what are your USPs, and what are the particular things that are driving them at this time to buy it? And again, Phil's example of the wedding dress is a great one, that they're not just buying something to wear at the wedding, they're buying something that will make them look beautiful and the centre of attention. So if you can identify what those things are, then you can target your customers well. And I don't mean that that means you can only sell one thing to one target market with one problem. But what I do mean is that you need to divide up your approach. So when you're running an AdWords campaign, within the individual groups that you're targeting, each of those groups should be targeted on one person who's buying one thing to solve one particular problem or meet one particular need. I met a woman last week who sells earplugs, and she started selling earplugs because she couldn't find any earplugs to fit her, and because her husband snored and she couldn't get any sleep. So she's identified 2 clear target markets already. Now, she's got several more target markets on her website now, but she could talk to people who couldn't get earplugs to fit. She solves that problem for them by sending them a trial kit. Not that they can send it back, but a trial kit. And she could also identify the target market who couldn't get to sleep because of their partner's snoring. And that's what I mean, it's splitting it up like that. So, if you can identify those 3 things clearly, then you can determine what the buying intent is of your customer, which will lead you to understand what keyword phrases they're using. And that enables you to craft the absolutely perfect ad copy for that particular market segment and to lead them to exactly the right landing page on the website to answer the problem that they've got. So, for example, if your customer types in World Whey strawberry, then they are probably looking for whey protein in strawberry flavour, not chocolate, and they're probably looking for it by a manufacturer, One World. So you could write an ad that looks like this. Now, the reason there are 2 ads here is if you are familiar with Google Ads, if your ad appears at the top of the page, it will look like that top ad, and if your ad is one of the ones down the side, it will look like the lower of the 2 ads. But this ad clearly repeats back the keyword they've typed in. It talks about what it is they're buying, and when they click on the ad, they get taken through to a specific page that is selling One World Whey protein in strawberry flavour. If you sent them to a page that sold a whole range of food supplements, they'd probably just leave the page. They wouldn't stay there and they wouldn't buy. But on the other hand, if your client types in something like, which are the best low-energy light bulbs, and this is one of our customers, which is how I found out about the people calling them lamps instead of light bulbs, what they're probably buying isn't a light bulb, they're buying advice. So what you need to be selling to them is advice. Now, in the case of this client, he has a page on his website called the Low Energy Zone, which provides information. So, you're looking for the best low energy light bulb, visit our low energy zone. And you take them to a page here that describes what low energy light bulbs are and all the different types. There's a couple of videos for you to look at, so that at the end of this, you now understand what these low energy light bulbs are and what's going to be the right one for your particular situation. And this kind of information page, you would want to end it up with a call to action. So having got them there and told them all about it, you want to make sure that they then do go on and buy something. So, the perfect hedgehog concept for your individual ad groups will enable you to identify the absolute best keywords to bid on for this particular client with this particular problem, to craft the absolute perfect ad copy to attract exactly that client to your website. I seem to have got stuff come up on my slide. Oh, it's gone again. And enable you to select the perfect landing page for your particular client's need. So if you do apply this kind of hedgehog concept, what can you expect to see? So this is an example of a customer that we started working with earlier on this year. And we're doing more for them now, but all I wanted to show was what was happening in the first month we worked with them. What we implemented was what I would call the housekeeping changes. We implemented some hedgehog concepts. We went through and we grouped the keywords better. We made sure that the ad copy related to the keywords, and we made sure that the landing page was relevant to the keywords. And the result of that was an immediate increase in the number of sales and an immediate drop in the cost per sale, simply by doing the hedgehog concept properly. So that's what you can expect to see if you implement a hedgehog concept. So that's the first and most important thing to get right. Then we move on to a culture of discipline. The thing about an AdWord campaign is you can't just set up an AdWord campaign and then leave it to run. It's more like going to the gym. It takes a lot of effort up front to get yourself to the ideal level of fitness, the ideal body weight. And after you've got there, you need to keep on doing the exercise and having a disciplined approach to it. And that's exactly the same with an AdWords campaign, because if you don't, then your fitness levels will go away. They'll just go backwards and you'll drift back off where you were. So, consistent, structured, organised, disciplined, those are the key words for you to apply to managing an AdWords campaign to ensure that it does create a lasting impression on your business and your clients. What I've shown you here, I don't expect you to be able to read all the details. This is the monthly checklist that we use for all of our team. Any new member of staff gets trained through this. This is up on the wall above the desk of all our staff members. Whether you are managing your own campaign and spending 20 minutes a week, or managing lots of campaigns or a huge campaign and spending hours a week, you need to be going through each of these areas on a regular basis, at least once a month on every single one of your campaigns. If you've got a brand new campaign set up, you probably need to be doing it more frequently. So a culture of discipline is really, really important. But it is a culture of discipline that's also got some freedom in it. Again, to quote Tom Collins from his book, it's a culture of discipline with an ethic of entrepreneurship. It's about guidelines. The point about an AdWords campaign is that there's probably more than one way to write the ad copy to attract the right audience. There's probably more than one way to structure your ad campaign to actually achieve the success that you want. You need to be able to have a business insights and apply those to your campaign as well. You might want to cope with something that changes in the environment, or you might want to respond to a news story. Our light bulb client a couple of years ago was watching BBC's Autumn Watch programme, and they did a programme on moth watching. And at the end of the programme, they told you what kind of light bulbs were the right light bulbs to use to attract moths to your garden. So the following day, we set up a couple of just simple ad groups targeted on BBC Autumn Watch moths, BBC moth watching light bulbs. And for a couple of weeks, because that's about how long an effect like that will last, he sold loads and loads and loads of those light bulbs. So yes, you've got to be disciplined, but you've also got to be thinking about what does your business need. So why do you need to have a culture of discipline? Apart from the idea of the outside influences like that. Well, so far this year, there have been more than 25 changes made to AdWords, including the introduction of enhanced campaigns, which is the largest change to AdWords that's been made probably in the last 8 years. You need to be responding to what your competitors do. If you are running a really good AdWords campaign, your competitors will be watching it. They will be looking to see what you're doing. Your competitors might do something different. They might introduce something else to the market. The market might change. And the more you run a campaign, the more data you will get, the better analysis you will be able to do of how that campaign is performing, of what works well and what doesn't, and therefore the more changes you'll be able to make to your campaign. And then there's external factors. How many of you saw an unexpected drop in sales in July? Anybody? Wow, nobody. Every single one of our e-commerce customers, yes, one person did, I know. Every single one of our customers saw a much bigger drop in sales in July than they expected. The only customer that didn't suffer was a golf club that got loads more mobile calls booking green times. And that was because the weather was so hot, nobody wanted to sit indoors buying things. We've got to factor that in. And then the final thing on my list is seasonal variations. I know some people here sell jewellery. I'm sure you write different kinds of ads and do different kind of marketing coming up to Christmas and Valentine's Day than the rest of the year. And the same is true with an ad campaign. You can target specifically for gift buying coming up to Christmas, and you might have a completely different approach at a different time of the year. So, what can you expect to get if you do apply a culture of discipline consistently and ongoing? This is the client who sells the World Whey protein. He's been selling without using AdWords for a couple of years. As you can see from here, when we started working with him just over 6 months ago, he was turning over about 6,000 a month. And by implementing a well-focused campaign, by gradually enhancing it and adding to it, gradually increasing the range of products, and in fact, just recently, we've also launched targeting Europe. We've been steadily increasing his revenue. So his target was to double his revenue in a year, and we've just about achieved that in 6 months. And the target is to go on and double it again over the next 6 months. And that's by a steady, regular, disciplined approach. That's what you can expect to see if you do it properly. If not, you'll just get fat again. So, the next section is the technology accelerators. Again, sort of quoting from good to great, technology itself doesn't cause your AdWords campaign to make a lasting impression. It doesn't make it a perfect AdWords campaign. But using the right technology in the right way can have a beneficial effect. It can help to improve your AdWords campaign. So in the context of an AdWords campaign, what do I mean by technology accelerators? I'm talking about the advanced AdWords techniques and features that you can use, which will improve the performance of your AdWords campaign. I've listed 6 here. I'm going to focus on the first 4, which are particularly relevant to e-commerce businesses. So the first one is product listing ads. So product listing ads enable you to display information about your products pictorially. And people tend to click on images, so you can do quite well out of them. Now, product listing ads are driven by your Google Merchant or shopping feed, and they used to be free. They weren't called product listing ads. It was Google Shopping, and it's not free anymore. But for all of the clients that we've introduced it to, it has worked really, really well. And all of the industry information about it is saying the same thing. At the moment, product listing ads are costing less per click than normal ads. They're tending to get a higher conversion rate, and so they're driving a much lower cost per sale. And one of the other benefits of using them, say this is our customer Evolution Organics. If you look up here, the very top entry up there is Evolution Organics. And then if you look at the product listing ads, 3 of the 5 images are Evolution Organics. So he's managing to dominate the first page of Google for the specific keyword that someone has typed in here. So product listing ads are something I recommend using at the moment. I don't know whether they will go on being as cheap as the take-up increases, but at the moment, they're well worth doing. The next technology accelerator I want to talk about is ad extensions. And ad extensions enable you to provide extra information with your ad in the form of links or phone numbers or images or more information basically that people can click on. So the example I've got here is not an e-commerce client. These people sell 3D CAD software, and they are agents for Siemens Solid Edge product. And we know that a lot of people just type in the general term Solid Edge, and we're not quite sure what they're interested in. So the main ad copy will send them to a general page about Solid Edge. But the links underneath will send them straight through to the free trial page or the get a quote page or the training and events page, because this company happens to run quite a lot of training courses. And it works. People who click on those links tend to convert better than the people who've clicked just on the main ad, because they know what they want and we've sent them to the right page. The second ad extension I'm showing here is the click to call, and this enables a mobile searcher to click on the phone number of your ad and dial your number directly instead of actually clicking through to your website. This particular example is a taxi company in Didcot. He is using a Google redirect number. Are any of you, one question, does everybody know that an 033 number is free if you dial it from a mobile or if it's within your landline package? That's my one concern about using these Google redirect numbers. I think they are good if the customers that you're selling to understand what the numbers are and aren't frightened off by them. With this particular client, we're currently testing it, so we're seeing, does it make any difference using a normal Didcot number as against an 033 number? The advantage of a Google redirect number is that you can find out an enormous amount extra about the person who called you. You can find out what keyword they typed in, you can find out how long they stayed on the phone to you, you can find out what dialing code area they were from. But the point about this ad is that we are advertising specifically on people who type in local taxi terms like taxi Didcot station, because we know that those people, generally speaking, are looking for a taxi right now. And what we're finding with this particular campaign is that it's costing an average of 13p for a click through to call. His conversion rate is about 50%, so it's costing about 26 pence to get a customer who will pay somewhere between £6 and £20 for a taxi journey. It also works really well for e-commerce businesses who are selling to certain sectors of the market. For example, we have a decorating supplies seller where it appears that lots of decorators sit in their vans at lunchtime eating sandwiches and browsing on their mobile phones and their tablets, and they order decorating supplies. We have another client who sells spare parts for HGVs. Now, his customers, if they own their own lorries, are sometimes driving all across Europe, and they are doing searches on their mobile phones and their tablets. And again, if something goes wrong with their lorry and they think about ordering something, they'll order it on their mobile phone for when they come back. And don't forget that searches on mobile are continuing to go up. The latest figures I saw suggest that today about 20% of people are searching on mobile phones, and the possibility is that about 25% of searches will be on mobile phones before the end of this year. Also, if you have a bricks and mortar store as well, it can be really, really useful. Something like 74% of searches done on mobile phones have local intent. So if you have a shop, as well as selling things online, mobile search can be really, really useful. Remarketing. Anybody know what remarketing is? Anybody using remarketing? Okay, for those of you who haven't, have you noticed that when you've been on a website and you've perhaps put something in your shopping cart and you didn't buy it, and then an advert for that product seems to follow you all around every single other website you go on, like stalking? Any of you seen that? That's remarketing, done really badly, because it doesn't have to be like that. Happened to me when I went onto Littlewood's site last year to look for a TV, and for the next 30 days I saw their ads about 25 times a day, which has just made me decide I will never, ever, ever go on Littlewood's website again. Remarketing doesn't have to be done like that. Remarketing gives you the opportunity to put an ad in front of somebody who's been to your website and done something or visited certain pages when they go onto another website inside Google's network, display network. So, for example, if somebody has entered a product into a shopping cart and they didn't complete the purchase, you might want to show an ad offering them a 10% discount to come back. Or if they visited several pages about a product, you might want to put something up there to show them. This particular client, Camberwell Studios, they run a green screen studio in Camberwell. And we started off with their ads only showing about 4 times a month. And they just wanted it to improve branding. At their request, we've now increased it to more like 2 or 3 times a week. But you do not have to stalk people to use remarketing. It is perfectly possible to do it in a way that works really, really well. Where your ad appears and what kind of ad can appear is entirely in the control of the person whose website the ad is being displayed on. So what we would do in the case of remarketing is create ads of all the possible different shapes and sizes that are allowed, so that if there was a site where it was valid to show the ad, we know that one of the ads in our armoury of ads will fit the space that's available. And the final accelerator is scheduling. And this does actually link back to discipline as well, and in fact to enhanced campaigns, which I mentioned, because you can do a lot more fancy things with scheduling now with enhanced campaigns. But with this particular client, we observed that he got higher conversion rates between 8 and 10:30 in the mornings and between 5 and 6 in the evenings. So we increased his bid price by 25% at those times. We also noticed that he got lower conversion rates from 6 p.m. to midnight. So at that time, we reduced his bid price by 25%. And as I say, this extra facility with bid pricing and so on, bid modifiers, is something that's available with enhanced campaigns. So that's the last of the technology accelerators. Now, the thing about this is with all of these extra features that you've got with AdWords, and I've only shown you some of them, you've got the equivalent of the latest smartphone in your hand. And it would be sensible to learn how to use it, because if you just use it for making phone calls and nothing else, then really you're wasting what you've got in your hand. So there's the 3 concepts, but the important thing is you need all 3. Having a really, really good hedgehog concept, but without any disciplined approach, using the right technology, but without your hedgehog concept, none of those will lead to an AdWord campaign that creates a lasting impression and delivers profit to your business. You need the 3 things working together to give you that perfect campaign.